Hello, everybody, and welcome to a really new, exciting workshop that we're doing called Soundscape Creation. And the goal here is that to look at soundscapes and creating sound design audio that can be used in a variety of ways for digital arts. So it can be used for accompanying, it could be used as a standalone piece, and at its essence, it's sound design, but it can also be its own piece of art, but it can also be used to help present other art forms. So it's a very interesting thing where it could be, part of kind of a mixed media element, or it can just be on its own. And that's the exciting thing that we're going to look at over the next few weeks. So this is a 3-week masterclass. This is week 1, and then we have 2 more weeks. And it's a great way we can also explore and accompany. We're doing an audio podcast masterclass. So if you're attending that, you can start to think about what does it mean to do a soundscape, and what does that mean? So we'll look at defining that. We're going to look at creating that, and we're going to talk more about this. So I just want to start off by thanking all our partners and making this project happen. So we have Canada Council for the Arts, we have our library partners, the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library. Now, sound is all around us. Sound is very important, and we're going to look at, there's not going to be a lot of visual to see, but some sound wave files and things. But we're going to be listening to a lot of things in the next few weeks, so that it's going to be a little bit different than the more visual digital art. So it's going to be the auditory sound digital arts, and really excited to bring this new masterclass together. Okay, so let's look at what we'll be doing today. So we're going to look at sound editing and design defined. We're going to look at what is a soundscape, soundscape roles, and we'll have a little bit of time for some Q&A. And I always say you can always email me, tom@tbmcs.ca, if you have any questions, and we'll have a bit of time for some Q&A as well. So, the main goal of today is, like it says here, defining the sound design goals. So once we know what the purpose is for a soundscape, we can look at how are we going to achieve that goal. So that's really the key thing here, is defining what we need to do, and then we can go back and figure out how we can do it. Okay, so let's get right into sound editing and design. So what is sound editing? And some of you have joined us for past workshops, and we looked specifically at sound editing design for video. But now we're looking at just sound editing design that could be just for in and of itself. It could be totally standalone. It could be part of an audio podcast. It could be part of a gallery showing, let's say you're presenting something and you want some music or something in the background. It's easy enough just to put some music on, but what if you can actually look at creating a soundscape that can bring a whole different world, a different emotion, a different mood to that environment? And that could be the really exciting thing. So there's the sound editing, but now we're looking at sound editing with that goal, right? So it's a little bit of a combo here. So sound editing is the process of refining, deleting, and or replacing existing sound. And and this could be just your source recording. And in this case, we're going to start to look at source recording. Can be, you might record sound effects on your own, and that could be your source. And you're bringing that in to create a soundscape. So let's say you're by Georgian Bay and you're recording the sound of Georgian Bay, and that becomes an element of your soundscape. And then you might need to edit that down to get the right parts. You want certain parts of waves and so on. So that would be the idea of that sound editing. And then, so you're helping to enhance and better tell the story through that editorial. And that's, the real thing. And I said here, I still have the thing about film or video, because sound editing is usually based on that. But now we're going to be taking sound editing for just sound editing's sake. It's essential can be used for fixing mistakes. So, with audio podcasts, the wrong words in dialogue, a loud truck going by. Let's say you're getting ambient sound of downtown Collingwood, a truck goes by, so you can cut that part out so you don't have a big noisy truck in the middle of your soundscape. It can also be used to replace different takes within a desired picture or sound take. So this could be, again, for picture, it could be for audio podcast, and it goes in both ways. Sound design, just like visual design, is the concept of using specific sounds to create a certain feeling, environment, or style of sound. Sound design for video is a direct parallel to the video and enhances the story being told visually. It can also be used to further tell the story. And this is really important because this sound design can be helped to further used to tell the story. And that's really key. Audio podcasts as a soundscape on its own. Think about a gallery showing photographs. The sound design for the gallery showing can help enhance the gallery showing and the stories in the photographs. So, this kind of idea of sound design. So that's sound editing, sound design was a little bit more on, what it would usually be for like the video world and doing sound. But now we're looking at doing the same thing, but without picture, or maybe with picture. It could be one and of the same. So soundscapes, what can they be used for? And before we even get into that, what is a soundscape? So, I've tried to put a overview of what this can be defined as. So a soundscape is a blend of different audio elements that are combined to create a new total sum of audio that can include music, sound effects, voices, ambient sounds, and more. And I think that's important. It's a blend of different audio elements that are combined to create a new audio element. So it's that combination and deciding what's in, what's out, how much of it, the different sound levels of each element. Is the music loud? Is the sound effects, are they loud? Are they quiet? And deciding what levels everything's listed at in terms of where the sound levels are, by deciding what's louder, what's quieter, that can really change things in what the soundscape is. So maybe there's music, maybe it's really distant. And we're going to look at just not even just creating the soundscape, but then also mixing, manipulating, and filtrations, and different sound equalization and things that can happen in soundscape production. So, and we'll look at a couple ways of doing these things, and it's going to be really interesting to do that. So now, what can we do soundscapes for? And here's, it's not an exhaustive list. It's just, initial concepts of what it could be used for. And again, this could be probably 100 times bigger of a list. But as an audio art piece of itself, to evoke a story, mood, or feeling, it could just be, you could create a soundscape, and that could be what you want to do. To create a soundscape to be as a piece of art that would be played in a gallery, and people could listen to your soundscape, and that would be the piece. And I think there's interesting artists out there that are doing things like that, and it could be quite a challenge to just have sound as the piece that's presented. Here's the big piece here too, is the background sound for a gallery event. So, like I mentioned, if you're doing, let's say, a gallery show of photographs, you could have this kind of a background sound. The soundscape could help better tell what the gallery show or event is about. Same thing with paintings. If there's a artist show paintings and having that background. It can also be used as sound to be mixed in with music or voiceover, and starting to get into that kind of audio podcast world. Virtual online website sound design. So maybe this soundscape is part of your new website that you want to design to showcase your different art. Film and video soundscape design. That's in general going back to that use of a soundscape for film and video. That's creating that overall sound design. And then that audio podcast sound design. So you've recorded, let's say, your vocals or your character parts, and you need to create a soundscape for the background behind it. So that's the really the neat thing about that. So let's look at now defining some of the sound design goals. So what is the setting or scape for the soundscape? So where is it to take place? Is it important? Is it part of something, or can it be a little bit generic? And then is it part of something, or is it totally standalone? Because I think that's always important, is how it could be, how much work are you going to put into this building this. If it's a totally standalone, you probably want to put even more work into it. If it's part of something else, it's more of a an additive or additional solution to something, then it could be a little bit different. Is it telling a story or is it part of a story? So these are defining what it is. And then once you define what the soundscape is or purpose is, you can begin the sound design. So we need to know, okay, this soundscape is for this, and this. So, where is it? Those kind of, those 5 W's: who, what, where, when, why, and how. W5. And that helps really figure out what we're going to do. So if it's taking place in a train station, we want to be able to hear train stations. If it's taking place in an industrial area, you want to be able to hear an industrial area. And that's what's possible. So what we're going to look at, I have some sound effects, and we're going to look at just starting to blend them and listen to some of them and how we can just choose them. And I think that's the first thing, is defining what we're going to do, and then choose some effects that can work towards that. So we're going to do a couple soundscape designs, and what I'll be doing, I'm going to demonstrate in the Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. It's just a totally free software, and it has something called Fairlight where we can do sound, and we can work in it in that way. I'm also going to look at, in the weeks to come, we're going to look at how we can build something in other software too. So we'll just look at Blackmagic. We'll look at what's available in just looking at some comparisons in Pro Tools and stuff, so we can have an idea of different software that's out there for audio. I think it's great to know that Pro Tools First is free and Blackmagic Resolve is free. So 2 great pieces of software that we're going to look at in terms of how they can be used. Now Blackmagic is for video, but it does have Fairlight that's just for sound. And whereas Pro Tools is just for sound, and it tends to have a lot of stuff in it. So it's very much worth showcasing what can be done with that as well. Okay, so let me just move into that. So I have, I'm just going to switch over here. I have a project in Blackmagic Resolve, and I've set up the sound so you can actually hear what I'm hearing too, which is really nice to be able to do. And we'll just go right into this. So you can see we get like the audio waves, and we can go from there. So I just pulled some initial ambient sounds, and I thought they're really interesting. So my goal here is I want to create an industrial soundscape that has echoes of the past. And that kind of, that's the first thing, because I came across this really nice industrial ambience that was recorded, and I thought it was quite intriguing. So let's have a listen to what it sounds like and what it kind of can evoke. So let's just give this a listen. So it's really interesting, and I think again, it's a long piece of ambient track, usually 3 minutes, and that's something good too. So if you're going to go and record your own background sound, so like I mentioned before, if you're going to go to Georgian Bay and just get some ambient sound that you want to use for your soundscape that you're going to design, you can take out these digital sound recorders. We have Zoom H4Ns that are available through our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library. It's just like taking out a book, and you just go to our website, tbmcs.ca. If you're a member of either one of those libraries, you simply complete an online proficiency test through our website. We add you to the list for available equipment, take this out, and then you can record. We have some great workshop videos archived that you can watch about this, and part of the online proficiency test is it will teach you all about recording. Now that's the key I wanted to say, is that any kind of element you're going to record, if you're out there field recording, record at least 3 minutes, because what's important is, let's say your soundscape is going to be 20 minutes, then having a 3-minute piece to loop won't sound like it's looping, but if it's 30 seconds, you're going to hear that loop of taking the piece and then looping it. So that 3 minutes can be really useful because then you won't really hear it. It's looped 8 times versus looping it 100 times if it's only 30 seconds. So that's just something to keep in mind, and I think that will help a lot. Okay, so let's listen to another one here. That's really interesting because I'm starting to hear like that wind. A lot of water, right? So like that. Right, so it's some initial like ambient sound. So what I'm gonna do is let's lay down like a few tracks. So I'm just gonna go to the edit tab here, and I'm gonna right click and just create a new bin in the master here. Right click, new bin, and I'm gonna put sound edits, and I'm going to create a new timeline. So again, a little bit different than in Pro Tools, but we just want to kind of introduce this so you can get on this really quick before we get into some more things in Pro Tools. So I'm going to call this Industrial Past as my soundscape, and that, think of titles that can maybe even help to evoke what you'll be working on in terms of that. So okay, so I'm gonna just go down here. I'm gonna add some stereo track. I'm just going to add one more, and I'm going to take those 3. So I'm just going to double click them. I want to go from the beginning. Okay, and what I'll do is I'm just going to do an overwrite, or you can take these and also like drag them down, and very much just like how Pro Tools will work too. So I'm just putting them down. They're all going to be playing equally at the same time, and let's give it a listen if all 3 play. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I like that. So now let's look at, what kind of music, and I had this little ragtime piece that I wanted to play with. Okay, so at first, it's going to be hard to, kind of mix and differentiate everything. So we're just looking at each element. So if we kind of think of like ambient tracks, like the music on its own, sound effects, if there's some vocals or anything like that. So we want to look at building these things and what that means. And that will help, put the soundscape together. And it's not going to be mixed because right now we're looking at kind of the sound. The goal is to create the industrial past. And we're going to then mix it to get all the levels right, because everything will just be kind of in competition with each other. And then we're going to figure out where we put things. And we can also go so far in the soundscape as where we place things in stereo. So will it be more on the left or more on the right speaker? And that affects things in headphones and also in a gallery presentation if there's a left and right speaker. And we can go beyond that. We'll look at even soundscape in surround sound too. So we'll look at some of that kind of theoretical ideas as well. Okay, so let's carry on here. So I'm going to do is just another track. Right click, and I'm just going to put another stereo track here, and I'm just going to take that, and I'm going to put in a little bit later, so maybe about 15 seconds there. So I'm just going to click that to tell it to go to that track there, and I'm going to put that in there. Okay, I'm just going to make this a bit bigger, and by dragging these to make them a bit bigger, it lets us see these wave elements, and it fills up the screen a lot, but it's good because then I can just click on this with my mouse and just make this a lot quieter. And it's just a way to quickly pre-mix because it's taking over everything, the music. Right, so that's kind of neat. So, I like that. And now I'm thinking, okay, this is what we're going to get to, but I just want to show you guys how quickly we can put a soundscape together. So I'm just going to go down here to the Fairlight tab, and under this particular track, I'm just going to go down over here, and I'm going to go over here to audio 4, which is the music. So I'm just going to call it music 1, so I know it's my music. And I'm going to do an effects here, and I'm going to look at maybe adding a little bit of echo, and let's see what that's like. I'm just lowering the milliseconds here a bit. So you can hear there's a bit of an echo. That's kind of neat. Okay, and let's see what else we can do with that. Maybe more of a delay. I'm just playing a little bit with the delay times. So and that's kind of neat. I like where that's going. Let's just have a listen to the beginning here. And then I'm just going to move this a bit forward here. Okay, so you can see we got a bit of that industrial warehouse feeling. We got a little bit of this this ragtime concept here. I'm just going to get rid of the echo and just leave the delay. And let's go back to that delay a bit and just play with what it's sounding like. Okay, that's kind of neat. And let's see what else we can do here. So let's look at this one here. So you can see we've just lowered the volume a bit. We've added a little bit of delay, and we're starting to get a little bit of that interesting kind of tone, like, why is that being played? Why is that happening? So I'm just going to copy this and kind of paste it so we kind of keep going. Okay, and now let's what we'll do is let's add another track down here, and we'll just keep adding some different elements and just see what we can do. Okay, so I'm just going to grab a few more sound effects just from different libraries here, and just kind of see what we can put in here. So I think there's some let's just go to the main thing here, sound effects library. we'll go to some of these. This is kind of the Wild West, I think. It was some diesel wheat grinder. I'm going to open that and let's see what that sounds like. Oops. That's kind of neat. So we put that in there as well. So we'll add that down there. And same thing, I'm just going to make that track a bit bigger so we can see the overall wave. Now that wave file is just showing me kind of how loud or how quiet it is. So I'm just going to, by lowering it, it just makes it a bit quieter. So let's have a listen to what that's like in the background too. That's kind of neat. And now let's get a little bit more stuff from that library. There's some diesel engines. Let's look at what's on the first part here. Stagecoach. Let's go a little bit further. I think there's some train sounds. I just want to see if we get a little bit of that. We'll get some of this Victrola, a little bit of the... That'll be kind of neat too. So let's add a little bit of that so we can kind of address maybe the music's coming like off a record player in that case. Let's see what that sounds like. I'm just going to lower that diesel wheat grinder a bit. That's kind of neat. So I just put, there's a little bit of that record player there. And what I'll do is we can just hit S here and we can just solo it and see what it sounds like. So, it's okay. I'm not, really that amazed by it, but let's just see, maybe there's something else in that kind of section. And maybe this piano playing. Let's see what that's like. So that's kind of neat. So I'm thinking maybe that can like play after the first time we hear the music. So just kind of add it in over here. Let's see what that's like. See, and that's the neat thing. Now we can kind of, maybe I can, now that we've stumbled upon some more music here, we can put some more of these piano pieces being played. Right, that's kind of neat. And we'll just put that all down there with our kind of our music section there, one after the other. So that's cool. And now let's put in a little bit, some more, I just want to get, I think there's a bit of a train thing I want to try putting in here, antique. Let's just see if we go over here. Steam train, there we go. So put a little bit of like some train stuff here. I'm just trying to evoke this kind of past, what would it be like in the past? This factory, industrial past, as we've called it, as our defining goal here. I think what's important is this is really kind of that process of finding and playing with things. Okay, so that's, I'm going to kind of lower that. And now over here in Fairlight, what I'm going to do is go to that track, that steam train, the audio 7, and okay, so see, we're coming up with something pretty interesting. And I feel like, we can probably start to get to the next song. So, that's kind of what we're trying to achieve here is defining, okay, the industrial past, putting in some layers of that, then what can I put into it? So a little bit of this music, this piano songs that are a little bit off and echoed, and are they playing off a record maybe? And then a little bit of some sounds like steam trains and things like that. So what I'm doing here is in real time, this is what I'm going right into software to do it, but this is what can be done on paper to start. Putting a list together, defining what you need in your soundscape, putting it all down on paper, making that list, and then you can start to, figure out what you're going to put right into the sequence here, and build it up, right? So I'm trying to just create this quick inventory of what I could use, and then to further manipulate that more and more in through the editing, the effects work on it, whether there's lots of reverb and echo and that kind of element. So it's kind of it's a building process. And so two ways you can do it is to create like a spreadsheet and say, this is what I want to create, these are my goals, and that's what I want to do. Or you can start to put like an inventory together in some sort of software like DaVinci Resolve or other types of editing software, or directly in like a Pro Tools software, and start to put it down into like a list of a directory of the elements that you're going to want to use for your particular soundscape. So let's go on a little bit further here with a few more elements that we might want to put in here, and just kind of see what steam train by. That sounds kind of like it'd be neat. And that's kind of neat because again, that could be a little bit quiet in the background. So let's put that down underneath down here somewhere, and let's put that in there. I'm just gonna make that a bit bigger there so I can see what it's doing. And again, I'm just clicking on this right with my mouse, and I can just lower it. So you can see I'm going to about minus 12 decibels there to reduce that. Let's just see what that sounds like. I'm thinking that we could probably just put something more about um, like some sort of a wind. Maybe we can add some more, um, kind of wind elements here. Let's see if my wind is going to show up here somewhere. Eerie wind. Let's do that. Low and eerie wind blowing. Let's do that one. That's kind of cool. So let's put that in there too, just as kind of an overall. Add that in there. It's adding another track, number 9. Again, it's not necessarily really organized right now, but this is how I like to just, whether this would be on paper or here, just to put together some thoughts on what we're, looking to do. That's pretty cool. So I'm starting to hear, I was just listening to it on the headphones, and I'm hoping everybody can hear this too, that, there's the wind, those industrial sounds, that really eerie, the echoed music playing. There's a little bit of some record scratching, the Victrola there, and then those trains coming by, that steam train stuff. So really putting specific sounds to bring us to the past, and it can be used in that way. So, that was the goal there, but what could this be used for? So for example, something like this, and putting this kind of list together. Okay, so look at what all the different, let's just look at kind of all the different sound effects that we have in here. So we have 3 layers of abandoned industrial units that are just ambient tracks. We have the music, which are a few piano pieces playing with a bit of reverb added. We have a diesel wheat grinder. We have the Victrola loop for that record scratching. We have a steam train going away. We have a steam train coming in. And then we have a low and eerie wind blowing. So, that takes us through all the different tracks. So, we've built up 9 different tracks to build that. And you can see how quickly the 9 starts to build, and it starts to add this kind of depth to the soundscape. Now, I wanted to do industrial past. What could it be used for? So if you think about it, it could accompany a gallery show with, let's say, photographs of abandoned industrial buildings. This could be playing. That could be a perfect accompaniment to it. It could be part of an audio podcast that's taking place with those kinds of elements, whether that's part of the story. So abandoned industrial or the past and things like that. So, so this is really what we're trying to do. So the first step of the soundscape is to define what your goal is going to be, get that inventory list. And we did it, virtually or in real time with actual sound effects to get an idea of what we want to do. So now I wanted to show you guys what the sounds are that are required. But what we need to do is to be able to do this in our heads and say, these are the types of sounds that I need and the kind of list that we need. So that's what I want everyone to do for next week, is to make a list of, define a soundscape that you want to create. Then create a list of all the types of sounds that you need. And, you can probably get, some of these could be royalty free, low, no cost online. You might just want to record some, take out one of the digital sound recorders from our library partners, record some of the sound effects, and then work from there. So define what kind of soundscape you're going to want to create, And then with that definition, you then need to look at what will it comprise of. So just like I had those 9 tracks there, you got to think of it that way. So I want you to really hear tracks instead of just saying, okay, what if we had an industrial empty factory, we had a train, steam train, we had music playing, right? It's hard to really think of all of that right away, but I wanted to kind of show you the inside of my thought process of what I'm hearing in my head to come up with that sound design. So hopefully that helped to show my internal process of thinking of this industrial past as a defined sound design, and then how I would come about to make that list. So I wouldn't necessarily just jump in and do this like this, but this was what my head was thinking in terms of what I'd like to hear, some empty industrial areas, those factories, and then adding those other elements that can help, bring those to life. So yeah, I hope that was interesting. Yeah, so I'm just looking at some of the, so yeah, we're going to manipulate movement and distance for the sound design. That's definitely going to come up into the mix. I'm just looking at some of the Q&A stuff coming up here. And it's and that's really what's important, is that once we get to the sound, so next week we're going to really look at, okay, taking the list of what you want in your soundscape by definition, executing the list, and then we're going to look at filtration, and we're going to look at that placement. So there's a few placement areas. We're going to focus just on a stereo placement because that's what most people will have access to. And then we can also look at the panning. So in the mixing, we can not only decide what's left or right, we can also decide that a train comes from the left and passes by and exits on the right. And then we start to get that movement of the soundscape. So we're going to get into that, the stereo mixing as well. So that's the goal. So if everybody could create your list. I know this wasn't, mixed by any means. This was just giving you that kind of idea of what's kind of playing in my head if I think about what the sound design is required for this type of a soundscape. So you want to, internalize that and then externalize it as a list. And then with the list, we're going to take that, use it for our sound design, then we're going to edit. And then by the 3rd week, we're going to mix and we're going to pan, and we're going to be able to have that kind of movement, and also make sure that everything's leveled and not overwhelming. We want it to all be in the right relation so that we can pick up little things, but not have too many things fighting with each other. And that's the fun thing, that even when we're mixing, sometimes we'll move things around just to make sure that they're not fighting each other. So that'll be really the goals there. So put that list together, and then we will reconvene next week and work on putting a first pass of sound editing based on a list, and doing some initial editorial, some filtration work, and getting ready to mix for the 3rd week. Again, a great piece of soundscape creation can really go a long way for your audio podcast. So if you're working on that masterclass with us as well, the audio podcast, this is a great complement to that. If you're looking to do a gallery show virtually, or you're building a website up, soundscapes can be really an important element of something that's there to give the audience a feeling of emotion and to help tell that story of what your gallery or what your virtual show is about. This could be also very useful for live performance or for theater work, where you can have soundscapes in the background. So yeah, it's gonna be really exciting. Let's continue this. So again, have that list ready for next week. I'm gonna have a list generated as well. And then we're gonna work on the sound editing to go from there. So once again, thanks to all of our partners in making this happen. Canada Council for the Arts, our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Busaga Beach Public Library, and all of you for joining us. I'm just seeing one more question here. Filtration, definitely, yeah. So some of that work, EQ and things, we'll look at some dialogue elements where we'll put in some voices and what we can do to manipulate that and clean some of that up too. But it'll be more focused on the soundscape, so that kind of more of what's not dialogue is the area here. But we will look at some dialogue as well. So that'll be part of it too. So again, thanks for joining us, and I will see you guys next week. Take care.